Bye weeks, they're going to be a nightmare. It's week 8. I'm Tom Strachan. Let's get into quarterback rankings and tiers. At the top, it's hard to argue against any of these top 4. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts. What we have seen from Mahomes over the last month or so has been incredible. He has just really got the deep ball going in a way which we didn't see last year. And he's also been excellent on throws, 10 to 19 yards deep. He's got 153 passer rating on those throws. They go up against the Commanders without Jaden Daniels at quarterback, and that just feels like it's going to play into Mahomes' hands perfectly. The Commanders have allowed the 5th most adjusted fantasy points to the opposing quarterback position. They haven't been particularly strong against the pass or against the run. I think this is a very easy game for the Chiefs. Buffalo coming off the bye week, Josh Allen should be in for a very good fantasy performance here. Yes, they are on the road at Carolina, and yes, this is the first team with a winning record who the Bills have got to take on this year. But look, the Bills, if they want to be Super Bowl contenders, you've got to beat the teams like the Panthers. And what we've seen from Josh Allen this year has been so good. He's been so productive. And we just know that it's difficult to count out a player who at any point could rush for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns. Josh Allen, he's scored over 21 points in all but 2 games. There is no reason to ever drop him down out of this tier. Lamar Jackson, who in the 3 full healthy games that he played this year, scored 29 points, 26 points, and 27 points, gets to go up against the Chicago team who, Chicago, they've had some fun fantasy matchups. They've had some fun real matchups. But in adjusted fantasy points, they've allowed the 7th most to the quarterback position. Their defense, it's really up and down. Dennis Allen really hasn't set his identity in stone yet. And I think this is a game where if Lamar's healthy, you have to go into it for absolute confidence. Chicago have allowed the 2nd most points to passes 20 plus yards downfield. Lamar's been excellent on those throws this year. Lamar has also been excellent against the blitz with 5 touchdowns to just 1 interception. Everything that's been thrown at Lamar this year, apart from the Chiefs, who have always had his number, Lamar's answered and he's done incredibly well. So very much expecting another good game from Lamar if he's healthy. Obviously, that's going to be one right up till kickoff that we're monitoring. The final quarterback in this tier, Jalen Hurts. It seems like the Eagles have finally just realized that their ground game isn't going to be as impressive as it was last year. Saquon Barkley still hasn't reached 100 total yards in any game this season. So instead, they're leaning further into the pass, like we saw it last week with Devonta Smith having a 47% target share, A.J. Brown getting 2 touchdowns, and A.J. Brown's consistently earned targets this year. Now, obviously, the last time that the Giants played against the Eagles, the Giants won this one, but they're not expected to be in that position again. They're 7.5 points underdogs heading into Philly, and I think that we see a very motivated performance from the Eagles this week. They will want revenge because that Thursday night game that they lost was miserable. The Giants' pass defense, they're banged up. They're going to be missing a couple of players, and I would expect the Eagles to be able to pass on them, and I would expect them to be able to run on them, and I would expect Jalen Hurts to be in for a very good week. Moving on to the next tier, Baker Mayfield, Jackson Dart, Drake May, Bo Nix, and Daniel Jones. All guys who are capable of putting up high-end fantasy performances, but all guys who just a little bit of a tier below those guys before them. Now, Baker Mayfield obviously isn't going to have Mike Evans anytime soon. Chris Godwin is already ruled out. Emeka Egbuka sounds like he could be able to play in this one. The Saints have been a strange team all year. They give up plenty of points, and Baker leads the league in deep pass attempts with 34 so far this season. And he's also got 8 touchdowns on those deep passes. I would expect this one to have plenty of points. This game is a 47-point over-under. No concerns about Baker Mayfield. Jackson Dart has just been ridiculous. Yes, he didn't get much in the way of rushing yards against the Broncos last week, but the Broncos haven't allowed anyone to rush. Justin Fields had the most rushing output of any quarterback this year, and he barely got to 30 yards. Everybody else had been kept below 15 or so. We saw what Jackson Dart did to the Eagles a couple of weeks ago. Perhaps they're better at defending him this week, but I've got no concerns there. And until we see otherwise, he's a top 12 quarterback. Drake May and the Patriots taking on the Cleveland Browns in New England. This one's a low over-under at 40.5. Now, New England do give up plenty of points to the quarterback position. They give up points to wide receivers. They've been a team who have allowed other teams to hang around. I'm not sure we necessarily see that from Cleveland because Dylan Gabriel just looks absolutely atrocious and is definitely not on this list anytime soon. We'll get to him later, though. But Drake May leading the NFL in completions over expected and adjusted completion percentage. He's also top 5 in yards per attempt and adjusted air yards per attempt. And he's doing all that despite the fact that he's only really got Stephon Diggs, who's definitely on the back nine of his career, Hunter Henry, and then guys like Kayshon Boutte and Demario Pop Douglas, who he's making very fantasy relevant. I think that we're going to see a really good game from Drake May. The way to get at the Browns is by targeting them deep. We saw that a few weeks back with Lamar Jackson to great success, and I think that's what Drake May will do here. Bo Nix obviously got there massively in garbage time last week against the Giants. Like, it was really miserable for most of that game, but he did get there. And now he gets to take on a Dallas team who are frankly just atrocious on defense. And that's why this game's got a 51-point over under. You look at what Dallas do every single week. They give up the most adjusted fantasy points to the quarterback position, the most to the wide receiver position, the fourth most of the running backs, the 10th most of the tight end position. They rank 30th in EPA pass defense. They are not a good defense, and I think that Bo Nix and Sean Payton are going to be able to do enough here where Bo Nix has a very nice fantasy week. Rounding out tier two, and it is Daniel Jones and the Indianapolis Colts playing at home to the Tennessee Titans. They are 14-point favorites here, and that should tell you all you really need to know. Daniel Jones, yes, we need him to get into the end zone more often than not. Yes, the Titans are a fairly good defense in terms of just taking the air out of games sometimes and not allowing scores to get really run up. On that note, they've allowed the seventh fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. But Daniel Jones's rushing floor is worth chasing. We're moving on to the next tier in just a second, but come on, hit that subscribe button whilst you're here. We've got more rankings for all the positions, as well as Rich's Dynasty buys and sells, my weekly waiver videos, and all the great pick'em content that Tyler's doing. Tier 3, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Caleb Williams, and Jordan Love. Man, I hate ranking Dak Prescott down here because he has been elite all season. He's playing to a really strong level and a dark horse for the MVP conversation, I think. But when you go into Denver, it really is a very tricky conversation. And look, the game total is 51. There is expected to be points because as much as Dallas defense is bad, the offense has played to a good standard and kept them in games. And Dak, he has really had that offense just absolutely dialed in. I think that we're going to see a very strong game from him. They rank third in passing offense EPA. Now, I wouldn't expect it to be big plays necessarily. Like, the Broncos are excellent, particularly shutting down out wide targets. We know that quite often when teams play against the Broncos, we see huge spikes to the first read. Well, that just means CeeDee Lamb. That might mean a bit more Jake Ferguson, and I'm very confident in both of them. Justin Herbert playing on Thursday Night Football. By the time you watch this is probably going to be out of date, so I'm not going to dwindle too much on this one, but I just want to point out that I think Justin Herbert having an incredible season, keeping 3 wide receivers inside the top 24, as well as a Rondé Gadsden. What more could you want? Caleb Williams gets to go and take on the Baltimore Ravens on the road, which is a little bit of a ding to this matchup for Caleb because he does have some home road splits where he's been playing better at home. We've seen him have a couple of stinkers in terms of fantasy performances with games where he's hit 12 points, 5.7 points. And the run game is kind of taken off enough that they haven't had to depend on him in the same way that they needed to. Now, this Ravens defense, it's easy to look at it and say, they've allowed the third most adjusted fantasy points to the quarterback position, second most to running back, fourth most to a wide receiver. They have been bad. And against the Texans, they looked truly awful. But they've got Roquan Smith back. They've got Kyle Hamilton. They've got Marlon Humphrey out there. They've got all these defensive stalwarts. So I do expect the Ravens defense to look better than it did heading into the bye. And that's why Caleb Williams lands here, with this game being on the road in Baltimore, but it'll be a very fun matchup, no doubt. The Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love, they go to take on the Steelers, and this is a game which has so much narrative going on off the field in terms of Aaron Rodgers and all that. But for me, Jordan Love is the real story. He's playing really well, and it seems that without Jaden Reed on the field, they've just focused in on Romeo Doubs, Matthew Golden, and Tucker Kraft, and those guys are all playing excellent. We know we're going to see Pittsburgh just give up a lot when they try to blitz because they are not getting pressure in other ways, and they play a lot of single high coverage, which Jordan Love has been fine against. There's no reason to be concerned about that one whatsoever. The Steelers, they've allowed the 12th most fantasy points to quarterbacks this year. I have no concerns about starting Jordan Love if you need to. Moving on to tier 4 in a moment, but first, look, if you got questions, drop them down below. I guarantee you we will answer each and every single question you've got, whether it's start sits, buys, sells, trades, whatever you've got. We're here to help you. Tier 4. Joe Flacco, Justin Fields, Michael Penix. Now, obviously, we've got to start with Justin Fields because the situation with the Jets is very up and down at the minute. It sounds like they want to start Tyrod Taylor. I mean, if you listen to the owner's comments, then he definitely wants to start Tyrod Taylor, talking about how Justin Fields can't even complete a pass. But it sounds like Tyrod Taylor's going to potentially miss out with, I think it was a knee injury, which puts Justin Fields in position to start. And if Justin Fields is starting against the Cincinnati Bengals, then I think you have to think long and hard about whether you've got a better option than him. The Bengals defense has been poor all year, even last week, where they kind of like looked like a better team overall. They didn't look like a good defense. They've allowed the fourth most adjusted fantasy points this year, the most running backs. They've been pretty good against wide receivers. So I would imagine this is a game where Justin Fields has to put it on his back and do a lot himself. But the Bengals defense ranks 27th in EPA. And if you can't play Justin Fields there, when can you play him? I've got enough faith in Joe Flacco to say that it's all going to keep going for now with him. He got the ball out very quickly last week and knew exactly where he was going. He was going to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and then Noah Fant as well. And Noah Fant, somebody we'll talk about in the tight end video. But against this Jets defense, people still seem to think that it's a reasonable defense just because Sauce Gardner's out there. And look, Sauce Gardner's a great cornerback. But this Jets defense ranks 29th in EPA pass defense. They are not a team we need to worry about. At that point, they've allowed the most fantasy points to play action, 2.1 more per game than the next closest. So don't be surprised if that's something that the Bengals try to get going and look to take some deep shots to Jamar Chase. Michael Penix Jr., look, the home road splits are really pronounced. I was really disappointed in how the Falcons played against the Niners last week. But if you're at home taking on Miami, then you're going to get a little bump in your rankings. And I'm very much fine with him here. Getting down into the deeper tier, those guys that you're probably not starting unless you're playing in super flex leagues or unless you're really in a league where quarterbacks are getting hoarded. It is Aaron Rodgers, CJ Stroud, Marcus Mariota, Spencer Rattler, and Mac Jones. So there are plenty of question marks here. Let's start at the back of the tier with Mac Jones. And the reason why I've placed him where I have is just because he's taking on the Texans, who are number one versus the pass in EPA per drop back. We've seen them just absolutely dominate across the field on defense. Yes, Derek Stingley's not playing as well as he did last year, but the Texans are making up for it because they've not allowed a single slot touchdown. They've allowed the second fewest points per game to the slot. So even if they're giving up a little bit more out wide, they're making the middle of the defense just even more secure. Mac Jones, for his part, yes, he's had 2 games where he's hit 22 points in the last sort of 5 games that he started now, but he's also had games of 14.3, 13.2, 6.2. Those aren't particularly relevant days, and obviously last week against a tough Falcons defense, the run game got going. I do wonder if the team are going to try and lean more on CMC this week. And while we're here, we will just touch on CJ Stroud. That 28.8 game against the Ravens, that is an outlier. CJ Stroud does not do this consistently throughout his career. You look across this season, 9.7 points, 15 points, 12 points, 18 points. Fine. If you need 18 points this week and you believe he can get you that, go for it. I do not believe in CJ Stroud, particularly as it looks like Nico Collins could miss this one due to a concussion. CJ Stroud has shown us over the years that he is not somebody who can outplay his situation. And with the offensive line as bad as it is, I just don't think that he's going to have a good game here. The Niners pass defense in EPA, they do give up a few points, but when it comes to quarterback scoring in fantasy, they've allowed the 13th fewest. Tier 6, Dylan Gabriel, Cam Ward, and Tua. Sorry, Tua, but look, until you can show that you don't belong in this tier, then this is firmly where you're going to be. The Falcons have allowed the second fewest fantasy points to the quarterback position. They're a top 5 defense in EPA allowed. They have just been excellent, and I do not believe in Tua going on the road, particularly when you take away Darren Waller, who was one of the few people he seems to have a really good connection with. I'm rounding it out with Andy Dalton and Carson Wentz. There's a lot of ambiguity over where Bryce Young could possibly start this week for the Panthers because of his high ankle sprain. Been seen at practice. Maybe he's okay, but I don't have much faith in it. If Andy Dalton's out there, I think he'll be okay for Jalen Coker and Tetero McMillan, but I'm not feeling like I particularly want to play him in fantasy. That's it. There you go. Drop your comments below. Let me know what I'm right or wrong about, and let me know what I can do to help you in fantasy this week.